Indian automotive sector is so massive. How do you see where we stand today in terms of sustainability when it comes to Indian auto sector?
I think Indian auto sector today is in the transformation phase from compliance only to now integrating ESG in business decisions. So that is the shift which is happening right now.
So when it comes to the live commitments like meeting the net zero or water neutrality or resource management, what is your take on those aspects?
And first and foremost is to establish a robust baseline for your emissions. You cannot copy paste one strategy of reducing your scope and becoming net zero to another entity or even in the same group.
Sustainability is a dynamic project. Have the different strategies and the roadmaps for different projects altogether, and integration amongst all the functions is a key. What is one sustainability myth about auto sector which needs to die?
That sustainability is a cost. It's not a cost. When you work on resource efficiency, adoption of renewable energy, reducing your waste, it builds a case around, it's a business case. It's not a cost. In addition to that is that sustainability is not one team's job. It has to be across the industry.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Welcome to another series of Pyrecast, a podcast to decode emerging trends across industries. Today, we are going to have conversation around Indian automotive sector. I'm your host, Sarika, and we have got today for the conversation, for the deliberation, Tanu. Miss Ahuja is a BTech in mechanical engineering and also holds MBA into operations. She has a rich diversified experience of more than 20 years into auto sector. She is also a certified independent director. So here I welcome her again. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So Tanu, my first question to you is that you started your career with production, quality, R&D and multiple other aspects related to operations. How come you started or shifted your professional journey to net zero, ESG strategy, etc.? What brought you here actually? It's a very different ball game altogether. So would you like to enlighten us, about your journey?
Yeah, sure. Hi, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's pleasure to be here and be, interacting with you. So you're very right. As I'm a BTech in mechanical and I started off my journey in operations only, looking after day-to-day operations such as production, quality, inventory, process improvement. And, later on I worked with Maruti also and completely into operational excellency domain with various vendors. One thing which stands out is that, when you look at the factory operations, you get a gist of, how the resources are consumed, how the waste is generated, how the efficiencies impact the overall scenario of a company. So the real change came in 2019 when it was the first time the Delhi schools were shut down because of the pollution.
Okay.
And coincidentally, the same year, I had an opportunity to visit Europe, and where the talks about sustainability, circularity were very, very prevalent. And again, coincidentally, the Indian German collaborations for upliftment of automotive industry of India, the talks were very, very prevalent at that time. And being a part of an automotive association at that time, I had an opportunity to meet with the different German associations where they were talking about sustainability and all those things. In association with GIZ Germany, we conducted a workshop with Indian automotive stalwarts to understand their awareness about sustainability issue. And when we did this webinar, they were eye opener. The companies are very, very good at taking care of the productivity, quality, cost, but awareness on sustainability issues and the opportunities which lies beyond, they were very minimal. So that was the time that I thought that sustainability will become an important imperative in automotive industry in India also. So I thought of dedicating myself to sustainability at that time. And again with GIZ, I started studying the frameworks of EU on sustainability. Then I met a lot of CSOs of OEMs. I met Hero Motors, Volkswagen, Toyota to understand what they are doing on sustainability and their expectations from the value chain. Because automotive industry works what OEM says. So with all those things, So first program I launched was on 18 months program on sustainable manufacturing practices. And then it was later expanded to 2 years program on complete ESG domains. And we did a train the trainer workshop with GSA Germany, in Germany only, wherein 30 of the automotive people were taken there on a resource efficient circular economy workshop. So that's how the journey began. Uh, but I have observed that sustainability is no different from what you used to. I think being in mechanical and being on operations has helped me in uh, integrating the resource efficiency concepts into sustainability domain. For example, energy efficiency, water conservation, all those things, nothing but process improvements. So it also helped in my sustainability journey. So I would say that engineering mindset has remained the same, but the scope has improved.
Yeah, so you're thoroughly enjoying your current role. I can see that.
Completely.
My next question to you, Tanu, is that Indian automotive sector is so massive and it almost forms 7% of the entire GDP we have. And it has actually intertwined the entire Indian economy. So, looking at the current state and your experience, how do you see where we stand today in terms of sustainability when it comes to Indian auto sector?
I think Indian auto sector today is on in the transformation phase. This is the pivotal point now, from compliance only to now integrating ESG in business decisions. So that is the shift which is happening right now. But if I look back, so Indian auto industry has come a long way. We are always up to taking challenges. For example, regulatory changes like shifting from BS4 to BS6 directly. That also accelerated our sustainability transitions. Then the regulatory framework such as EPR and battery recycling, etc. Scrappage policy, that also has come a long way when we started off. And from environmental perspective, lot of companies are working on energy efficiency, adoption of renewable energy, water conservations. So a lot of things are happening, but I think the major challenge which lies in environmental aspect is your value chain. So it's very very difficult and complex. And from social front also, now the Indian automotive industry is very uh, conscious about safety of their employees, uh, diversity and inclusion. We have examples from Tata Harrier, Ola Electric, wherein it is 100% being run by uh, the females now. So these sorts of shifts are definitely happening now. And I think BRSR, in from governance side, BRSR from SEBI has given a common language to all the industries across in sustainability.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So I think we have come a long way, but it's still a long further pathway to cover.
Very much. Even whether it is environment or in social, MSMEs will remain a challenge where the capabilities and the resources are very very limited.
And they're so scattered that bringing them along in your ESG journey is slightly difficult.
It's difficult. It will take some time, but I guess we will reach there.
So moving further, Tanu, in this series, I have a question regarding the EV and how the auto sectors are taking EVs. These days, people have started saying that EVs are the next answers or next phase of the auto sector. Do you think it's a right statement to make, and where do you think we are going in that direction?
That's a very, I mean, it's a diplomatic question actually. See, EVs are an important aspect of sustainability transition. But I think EVs in isolation cannot be the sustainable solution for automotive industry. I think what we need to look at is from vehicle electrification to sustainable mobility. And in all that jigsaw puzzle, that EVs are, one of the important piece of that puzzle in Indian sustainable mobilities. Because see, if you just take EVs, so of course they they help a lot in reducing your tailpipe emissions and having, especially being in Delhi NCR, we understand the importance of clean air. So they do definitely help, and with the increasing adoption of renewable energy, that will also help in accelerating the adoption of EVs also. But apart from that, I think we need to look at the sourcing of critical minerals across the globe, because uh, ethical sourcing is now a big question mark. and then recycling of EVs. So I think if we can take care of that, the overall emissions of EVs would be less than ICE engines. uh, but again, I think that Indian we should take it in a very balanced manner, uh, because India has unique challenges, affordability, the infrastructure, and the energy access. They will remain the key challenges for India for next few years. So, as I said, that EV can be one of the solutions, but not in isolation.
Yeah. So one related question, do you have or do we have the enough data to do the cost benefit analysis? Have we reached to the end life of EVs so far so that we can see had it benefited us or is it costing us more?
I think it's too early to say anything on that, because EVs have recently been started, and when we see the life cycle of a vehicle in Delhi, leave Delhi NCR aside, but 15 years is a very normal life cycle of any vehicle. So I think we have not reached that stage of end of life vehicle as of now. But the major component battery, again, when it was started, battery life was low, but now the technology has evolved, and again we have come a long way from the battery enhancement also. But it will take us some time to look at the cost benefit. As of today, it is more costlier than, as I said,
Absolutely.
affordability will remain an issue unless and until we reach that stage,
And
because
you're setting up everything right from beginning for that facility.
yes.
My next question to you, Tanu, is around a buzzword, which is net zero, decarbonization. So I am sure you have seen both the sides, the implementation side as well, and the strategy side as well. So when it comes to the live commitments like meeting the net zero or water neutrality or resource management, what is your take on those aspects? Where do you see where we are and where we have to go?
So I think for any company, before strategizing anything, first and foremost is to establish a robust baseline for your emissions. So one is that. And then while again automotive industry has come a far way along in energy efficiency practices or adoption of renewable energy. So when you move on to all these aspects, you reduce your emission intensity. But as an organization grows, expands, reducing the absolute emissions will require a lot of technology changes, innovations, and investments. And I think, see, I have 14 plants pan India, and I have seen that you cannot copy paste one strategy of reducing your scope and becoming net zero to another entity, even in the same group.
Absolutely,
It
yes.
actually depends on where the individual entity stands, what are the regulatory framework in the particular state, what is my consumption pattern. So your strategy changes. You cannot just copy paste it anywhere. Another thing is that it's not just the job of a sustainability team. This has to be integrated now. You cannot work in isolation now. All the decisions, daily decisions, the sustainability has to be concerned in that. So we have a plant in Pune where we are expanding into another unit. uh, so the DGs are already procured in the procurement cycle. The structure is being set up, and we have extrusion process there. So I happened to visit that plant, and I just tried to understand your extrusion process. If the electricity cut off, you will have high rejection cost of poor quality, and they agreed on that. So I told them, why don't you go for express feeder line? So now express feeder line requires investment. So companies are a bit hesitant in going into that investment. But I told them to check out that what is your cost of poor quality, how much is the power cuts, what is the duration of power cuts, how long the DG runs. So giving all these scenarios, we decided to go for express feeder line. Two DGs which we have decided to procure, they were kept on hold. Now it is that the capex which was required for DG, that has been diverted to procurement of the express feeder line. So I have not incurred any cost on that. And apart from that, because I won't run DG, my scope 1 emissions will be minimal.
Absolutely.
So the same scenario cannot happen with any unit which is running on a very small wattage. So that's what I'm saying, that you cannot copy paste one strategy to another. And then when you talk about water neutrality also, So one thing is that you reduce the consumption. That is one thing, and I think now everybody is focusing on recyclability and reusability of the water within the premises. And for water neutral, I believe every company has to go beyond their fence, and companies are actually participating in community projects and everything. But again, these community projects have challenges specifically in urban areas such as Gurgaon, Faridabad, UP. Uh, so I have been discussing with companies who are working in this area specifically. So they take some lake rejuvenation project or something of the sort for a period of 3 year as a sustenance model, and they of course the local community has to be involved, and the local MLA or the local regulatory authority has also to be involved. So, till the time the company is working on that project, it goes on. But because the root cause eradication doesn't take place, if a company backs out after, 3 years, whatever project you have done, it goes back to status quo. So it will take a long time. I mean, you cannot, just put it in your report or anything that, 1 year you have done the water neutrality project and after 3 years you are again at zero.
Yeah. So even I buy your thoughts that sustainability is a dynamic project, and one single pill cannot be given to all the patients. You have to have the different strategies and the roadmaps for different projects altogether, and integration amongst all the functions is a key. My next question to you, Tanu, is on the human capital side. And since ESG, S comes in between, it's the heart of ESG. I believe so. So, what is your submission on the S part? S includes a lot of items within it, be it diversity, inclusion, health and safety, as you initially mentioned. So, when it comes to enhancement of ESG in every facet of functions within an organization, in auto sector mainly, where do you see S stands? What is the delta and how much time do you think we will together take to fill that gap?
Again, I would say it's a diplomatic question, but let me try to phrase it. So, social, of course, is a very important aspect, and again, the industry is maturing from 16 hours shifts to 8 hour shifts plus some overtime that has helped in those aspects. Companies have their focus on zero harm factories now. The safety is in upfront now, and companies have of course the regulatory framework such as ESN and all those things also helps in all in the social aspects. um, but companies have taken health and safety measures very drastically, as I'm saying that zero harm factories they are focusing on. Diversity and inclusion, as also I just mentioned that we have examples across the industry now that they're working on diversity and inclusion completely. We have also started including autistic people into our shop floors now.
Great.
So that's how the diversity and inclusion is also happening. And then of course the community engagements, the CSR has taken a shift from just data driven to impact driven projects now. So the industry is evolving in social parameters. Regulatory coming up like FTE has come, and with the fixed labor hours, minimum wages, fair living wages, all those things are helping, and companies are adopting all those things. But again, the real challenge lies in what is beyond your own factory. Again, MSMEs will remain a challenge because you cannot see what is happening at the tier 2 or tier 3 level beyond. So it will take some time to reach there.
Yeah. Thanks. So, as I mentioned, that S sits in between and it's a heart, and every heart requires a little more care to make it healthy or to stay alive. So, thank you so much. So, Tanu, my next question is, we have spoken about E, which is the first letter of ESG. We have spoken about S. What is your take? How automotive industries are moving, taking G ahead? Are they serious about G? They are just taking it as a compliance. What is your experience on that aspect?
Again, I think it started as a compliance only. But now, as the industry is moving, and because Indian auto sector is works in a very global competitive environment. How, other global countries are evolving around governance. So India is also evolving around this. And I think BRSR by SEBI has given a, common language and a common boardroom agenda across the sector.
Yes, yes, yes. Even I've seen that initially when people had started with BRSR, they were not that serious. They were just taking it as a compliance. But uh, companies, industries have started taking BRSR and the reporting around it very, very seriously.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, just as a last segment of our podcast today, I would like to have some rapid fire questions with you. So, the first question in this row is, what is one sustainability myth about auto sector which needs to die?
That sustainability is a cost. It's not a cost. When you work on resource efficiency, adoption of renewable energy, reducing your waste, it builds a case around, it's a business case. It's not a cost. In addition to that, is that sustainability is not one team's job. It has to be across the industry.
Thank you. Mission 2070, which is a net zero mission 2070, is actually an ambition or a safety net for the corporates.
I don't think that, because it's an Indian national target. So industry have to, we are the enablers for our nation. And I think 2070, although, the timeline lies very far, but the most important part is the milestones between now and then. It's an ambition and a responsibility both.
One genuine effort what auto industry is doing which people should know.
Efficiency improvement. I mean, since the start of my career, frugality is in Indian culture. And I think you know, we have implemented those concepts across our, shop floor also, our factories also. So I think resource efficiency is one thing which is not been enough credited across the sector.
Okay. EV is going to transform the entire auto sector or it's just a transition phase?
It is in transition phase. It is not the transition phase. It is in transition phase. And as I mentioned earlier also, that they are a big part of a complete, sustainable mobility, but it is not the destination. It might be an enabler, but it is not the destination.
Circular economy is an opportunity for the auto sector or it's still a distant object to be achieved?
It is an objective which needs to be addressed as soon as possible, and opportunities are there. The battery recycling, the plastic recycling, they're already there. I think what is required is the collaboration, be it OEM, be it tier 1, be it tier 2, or the scrappage facility. The collaboration across the complete value chain is required when you talk about increasing the recycled content into your component. Moving on to, sustainable packaging or returnable packaging, or improving your logistics. I think the innovations have to be faster, and the decision making should also be faster.
So, with this, we come to an end of our today's podcast on sustainability into auto sector. And I'm so overwhelmed to hear you, Tanu, and so as our listeners would be to have your perspective around auto industry, how they have progressed so far, where the road is leading to the auto companies and the entire sector. And we are very, very positive and hopeful that we will achieve our mission goal and 2070 ambition together. So, here, your host Sarika signing off. And thank you, Tanu, for joining us. And we'll be soon back with the next series of Pyrex Cast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.